Welcome to San Francisco in 1851, a tour of the gold rush boomtown captured in the lithographs of Henry Ferks, Britton and Ray, and the dozens of artists who rushed to document the most extraordinary transformation in American history. 2 years earlier, this had been Yerba Buena, a sleepy Mexican pueblo of perhaps 800 souls and 50 buildings scattered around a muddy cove. Then, on January 24, 1848, James Marshall found gold at Sutter's Mill in the Sierra foothills. By the time news reached the East Coast 9 months later, San Francisco's population had already begun its explosive growth. Now, in 1851, 60,000 fortune seekers crammed into a city that barely existed 3 years ago. They came from every corner of the globe. Americans from New England and the South, Chileans from Valparaiso, Chinese from Canton, Australians, French, Germans, Irish. The harbour bristled with the masts of 549 abandoned ships, their crews having deserted for the goldfields the moment anchor dropped in Yerba Buena Cove. The ships became part of the city itself. The Niantic, a whaling vessel, was beached and converted into a hotel, one of the finest in the city. The Apollo became a saloon. The Euphemia housed a warehouse. Dozens more were used as storage, shops, even a jail. The city literally built itself on top of these maritime ghosts, filling Yerba Buena Cove with sand, rubble, and the remains of the Gold Rush fleet. At the intersection of California and Montgomery Streets, what would become the financial heart of America's West, the chaos was indescribable. Tents and wooden shacks stood shoulder to shoulder with the first brick buildings, mud streets churned by thousands of boots and hooves, the stench of sewage mixed with salt air and wood smoke. Prices were astronomical. A single egg cost the equivalent of $10 today, an omelette $50. But no one cared about the cost, only about the fortune waiting in the mountains. But San Francisco's growth came at a terrible price. The city burned, and burned again, and again. Between December 1849 and June 1851, 6 major fires swept through the wooden city. The first destroyed 50 buildings. The second, in May 1850, consumed 300 structures and 4 blocks of the waterfront. The third, in June 1850, burned 300 more. Each time the city rebuilt, faster, more determined, more reckless than before. The worst came on May 4, 1851. It started in a paint shop on Portsmouth Square and was driven by fierce winds through the heart of the city. 18 blocks, nearly the entire business district, went up in flames. 1,500 buildings destroyed. $15 to $30 million in property loss. Dozens dead. The fire burned so hot that it melted glass and twisted iron. Ships in the harbour caught fire from flying embers. Yet within days, merchants were rebuilding. Brick replaced wood, iron shutters appeared on windows. The city imported prefabricated iron buildings from the East Coast and China, fire-resistant structures that could be assembled in days. San Francisco learned that it could not be destroyed, only temporarily inconvenienced. The fires also revealed the darker side of the boom. Arson was suspected in several cases, property owners burning their own failing businesses for insurance, or criminals creating chaos to cover robbery. The volunteer fire companies that battled the blazes were often rival gangs, more interested in looting than saving property. By 1851, the lesson was clear. San Francisco would build in brick and iron, or it would burn forever. The skyline began to change, from canvas and wood to something more permanent. The city was growing up, even as it remained wild. San Francisco in 1851 was 2 cities occupying the same space. On the heights, Telegraph Hill, Nob Hill, Rincon Hill, the wealthy built their homes with commanding views of the bay. Below, in the narrow streets around the wharves, chaos and vice ruled. Portsmouth Square was the heart of the city, a plaza surrounded by gambling halls, saloons and hotels. The El Dorado, the Parker House, the Bella Union, these establishments ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Fortunes changed hands over Monte, Faro and poker. Champagne flowed at $20 a bottle. Prostitutes from France, Mexico and China worked the crowds. Violence was common. Murder was frequent. The city had no effective police force. Law was whatever you could enforce yourself. In the vacuum, the Sydney Ducks, Australian criminals and former convicts, formed organised gangs that terrorised the waterfront. They were suspected of starting several of the Great Fires, burning buildings to cover massive robberies. Into this lawlessness stepped the Vigilance Committee of 1851. On June 10th, just weeks after the Great May Fire, a group of prominent merchants formed a committee to take justice into their own hands. Within days, they hanged John Jenkins for stealing a safe. They hanged James Stewart for murder. They deported dozens more. The committee claimed it was restoring order. Critics called it mob rule. Either way, it worked. Crime plummeted, at least for a time. Meanwhile, Chinese immigrants were creating their own community, what would become the oldest Chinatown in North America. By 1851, over 2,000 Chinese lived in San Francisco, most working as merchants, launderers, cooks and miners. They clustered along Sacramento Street and DuPont Guy, now Grant Avenue, building joss houses and importing goods from Canton. White San Franciscans viewed them with suspicion and growing hostility. The Chileans too formed their own neighborhood, Little Chile or Chilecito, occupying the blocks between Montgomery, Kearny, Pacific and Jackson. They had been among the first wave of Argonauts, sailing from Valparaiso in 1848–49. Their fandango halls and empanada shops gave the district a Latin flavour that would persist for decades. San Francisco discovered early that the real money wasn't in mining for gold. It was in selling picks and shovels to miners, and liquor, and women, and passage on ships, and everything else the 49ers needed. Sam Brannan, a Mormon elder who had arrived in 1846, made this discovery first. When news of gold broke, he bought every pickaxe, pan and shovel in California, then walked through San Francisco waving a bottle of gold dust and shouting, "Gold, gold from the American River." He sold his inventory at massive markup and became California's first millionaire, without ever mining an ounce himself. By 1851, the city had established itself as the commercial hub of the gold country. Wells Fargo and Company opened in 1852, providing banking and express services to the mines. Newspapers flourished. The Alta California, the Herald, the Daily Pacific News, bringing international news and advertising to a population hungry for connection to the world they'd left behind. The waterfront was the city's economic engine. Long Wharf extended out from Commercial Street, one of 9 major piers that brought goods from around the world. Ships from China brought tea, silk, and Chinese workers. Ships from South America brought coffee, hides, and Chilean miners. Ships from the East Coast brought manufactured goods, mail, and fresh waves of fortune seekers who'd survived the 6-month journey around Cape Horn or the fever-ridden shortcut across Panama. Telegraph Hill got its name in 1853 when the first telegraph station west of the Mississippi was erected on its summit. From there, lookouts would signal the arrival of ships, their flags identifying cargo and origin. The information was worth fortunes to merchants who could act first on news of arriving goods or departing ships. The Miners' Foundry and Shot Tower on First Street symbolized San Francisco's transformation from trading post to industrial center. By 1851, the city had iron foundries, furniture factories, flour mills, everything needed to supply not just the mines, but a growing regional economy. Even in its rough adolescence, San Francisco dreamed of grandeur. The Jenny Lind Theatre, named for the famous Swedish soprano, opened in 1850, bringing culture to a city barely 2 years old. It burned in the May 1851 fire, but was rebuilt within months. Other theatres followed: the Adelphi, the American, the Metropolitan. International talent performed Shakespeare, opera and melodrama to crowds of miners still wearing their muddy boots. Churches sprang up alongside saloons: Grace Church, the Catholic Cathedral, the Methodist Church, synagogues. San Francisco was building its soul even as it counted its gold. The old Mission Dolores, dating from 1776, stood as a reminder that this land had been sacred long before the Americans arrived. By 1860, Yerba Buena Cove had been completely filled in. The waterfront took the shape it would hold for the next century. The tents disappeared, replaced by wide boulevards: Montgomery Street, California Street, Market Street, lined with increasingly grand brick and stone buildings. The city expanded in all directions: west toward Twin Peaks, south toward Mission Bay, north toward the Presidio. In 1870, San Francisco's population passed 150,000, making it one of the largest, richest, and most famous cities in the world. Los Angeles, by comparison, had fewer than 5,000 inhabitants and was unknown outside Southern California. San Francisco was being called the Paris of the West, a cosmopolitan metropolis on the edge of wilderness. The Presidio still stood on its northern heights, a military post unchanged since Spanish days. Mountain Lake provided fresh water. The Golden Gate, named by John Fremont in 1846 for the Golden Horn of Istanbul, not for gold, remained as spectacular as ever, that narrow strait through which all the world's fortune seekers had sailed. The lithographs of Britton and Ray, the photographs that were just beginning to appear, the pictorial letter sheets that miners sent home, all captured a city in furious transformation. From Yerba Buena to San Francisco, from Pueblo to metropolis, from canvas to brick, from lawless to merely unruly. The gold rush created modern California, and San Francisco was its beating heart, the city where the California dream was born, where anyone could strike it rich, where America's westward expansion finally reached the Pacific and looked back east with satisfaction. I hope you enjoyed your tour of San Francisco in 1851. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe for future videos.